Besides making the actual map and the mapped area, the legend is the hardest part of cartography. Thus, a part of this lecture is devoted to this key map element. That's a play on words because the word key used to be also synonymous with legend, but that's like so outdated, it's no longer used. Here we see a legend, and so typically we have the symbol with the text to the right. Now, a legend, it's not always necessary. It doesn't have to be on every map. For example, a reference map of the United States wouldn't necessarily have or require a legend. Further, a legend doesn't have to have a neat line that surrounds it. Some do, some don't. Even further, a legend doesn't necessarily have to have a title or a heading. In fact, we used to always have the word legend at the top of every single one of these suckers, but that's starting to fade away. Finally, sometimes if it's done properly and the size it looks good, and just depends on if it looks aesthetically pleasing, if it follows the general guidelines, then a legend heading and a title can essentially be the same. So here's a legend at the bottom that does not have a neat line. Further, we have two columns, and so this isn't really something we traditionally like to do. However, if you're going to start having numerous information, numerous columns, you want to keep like stuff in the same column. So in this case, type of school, all of it in this particular column here, road type, all of it over here. You don't want to have it so a situation where road type starts here and then ends there. We want to have them combined all together. Further, we have proper ordering. We have the highest, in this case, to lowest. Same here, highest to lowest. We typically want to keep that consistent. If we're doing it over here, we want to continue with that whole hierarchy over here. We also want to try to make sure that the symbols that we see on the map are the same exact symbols that we see in the legend. Same size, same everything. This is a whole lot easier to do in modern cartography with computers. It pretty much does that for us. Back in the old days with pen and ink, we had to make sure that what we were drawing on the map is what we were drawing on the legend as precisely as possible. Once again, we have the text on the right side of the symbol. Further, we typically like to use singular terms, so not state roads, not city streets, not county road, but we prefer using the singular, so road instead of roads, or targeted property instead of targeted properties. And once again, we got to consider alignment, centering, especially when we have multiple rows and columns, and we want to avoid splitting the legend into multiple columns that are unnecessary. So if I all of a sudden split this into 3 columns because I want to really fit this in here, make it nice and big, and so that would split up type of school into 2 columns, that really wouldn't be helpful. It's not efficient. We want to have them all in one particular column. With the symbols grouped based on a particular criteria. It could be based on a type of feature, point, line, and polygon. It could be based on whether it's the base information or a map theme. Here's a legend at the bottom. This legend here is one thing, it's negative. It's got a few things wrong with it. We can clean it up. But it's a term called pinching. So you can see how the legend goes right to the bottom of the white space. Of the available space. We want to save some room, and so once again, centering, alignment. We want the same distance between the the feature here, the mapped area, the Indiana border, and the legend, and make sure that that's roughly the same distance to the edge. So we want to have everything balanced, symmetry, things centered and aligned properly. Here we see an example of a particular legend in which it's unnecessarily has 2 different columns. We would do this if we had, once again, like we saw previously, when we had school type and road type, but when this is the same data. This is, in this case, population, percentage of the population that's age 20 to 24 for each of these counties, and so highest to lowest, we would want to make sure that this is also shown highest to lowest with it all in one particular column. One of the things is increasingly this word legend is used less and less on maps. I don't know why. I think it looks good. But anyway, so just to essentially get rid of that, here in the Format Legend pane, you would just unclick the Show button here underneath the Options Legend. And so now I've done that. I've removed legend, but we still have some more work to do. We have it all in one column. That's good. We got rid of legend. Okay. But we want to have more understandable numbers. We don't like all these decimal points. Further, this whole situation here, it's really not helpful as far as explaining what this is showing. And so what's happening is I want to switch that from a decimal point to a percentage. And so what this is once again, population 20 to 24, so that's a total number. that's within that age cohort divided by the total number of people in a particular county. So it's just a percentage. And so I just wanted to essentially change that. And so I go over here to the advanced symbology options in the symbology pane for the Indiana counties, and I change it to percentages. So I got to go back to the original map. This isn't something you can do super easily in layout. I suggest going back to map, going back to symbology, and then changing it to percentage and making sure also that this percentage here, this particular box is checked here under percentage. So now I have these converted to percentages. This is much better. We understand these much easier. This pops out as, okay, I understand now that this is a particular county here in which, roughly somewhere in the teens, maybe or actually over 20% of the population is 20 to 24 years old, and that's because there are college universities there. Further, we can continue to fix this. So we have that all there. It looks good. Okay, we got all this. We can further fix this. We can maybe center this. I don't like this whole situation where I have 2 lines and the second line is over. I kind of want to have this centered better. And so to do that is one of the things is in layout view. Now we're in layout view. We're not in map view. In layout view is if you right click in this particular box, then you convert it to graphics. Essentially, it starts the process of this turning these individual things, the box, the numbers, the text, all of it, and turns it into graphics that then we ungroup. And then when you ungroup them, you can then click on each of these individually and then change them from there. And so what I did is I changed it. I said, okay, instead I want this to all be one line. I probably should move that up a little. It's a little too close to that top one, so that would be a bad alignment. Would want to bump that up just a little bit so it has the same spacing from in between each of these symbols, same spacing we want to have with the legend heading here. So maybe the best here is if I had a rip-roaring great title for this map, I probably wouldn't even need one. So I had the title would just be essentially percentage of the population that's 20 to 24 by Indiana County. Something simple.